Hey, friends out there, this is Thursday, May 19th, 2022, and it is just about 5:48 and a half here in Northern California. And as usual, I'll talk about a few things today. I hope everybody's doing as good as they can, living, loving, and believing. You know, I've got a real heart for the downtrodden. Anybody that's heard me talk before knows that this is my shtick, so to speak. I cannot get away from it. I cannot. I don't care what kind of life I'm living in terms of prosperity, worldly wealth, riches. I can't imagine being a different human being. I just am stuck with this conscience that says, well, I wish I was like that person. It won't allow me to do that. I really care about people. And I know a lot of people say, well, you just got to let it go. And I say to myself, my whole life, I've watched injustice, unfairness, wealth imbalance grow in my country, my beloved nation, America. I'm as patriotic as they get. I love this country. It's a very special place to be born. I think Americans understand that. This American exceptionalism, the way every nation on earth looks to us for innovation, for ideas, to industrialize. They know we've got the best and the brightest, the scientists. Who came up with the nuclear bomb first? As if that's a good thing. No, it's horrific. And it's shameful that that happened, I believe, in American history. That's horrific. Could we imagine? How would we feel about Russia if they had been the first nation to drop a nuclear bomb on some nation that was threatening them? It's nothing to be proud of. But the point is that I love this country very much. And I don't know who it was. Some say Thomas Jefferson that said dissent is the highest form of patriotism. Always remember that. It's not only okay to go against the flow, often the popular thinking is wrong. It's kind of like Nazi Germany. It was very popular to be a Nazi, to believe in racism, in that kind of exceptionalism where it was the Aryan race. So they wanted to weed out everybody else and have this pure race was the idea, right? Very evil. Racism, very evil. You see what it did at that top supermarket in Buffalo, New York? That is the exemplification of the face of evil. That would do something like that. It makes every white guy in America ashamed to be white. That guy, that clown, that idiot. And the only thing I can say is thank God this thing we call death is subject to interpretation. We're not to believe in death. We can believe it exists, but we can believe as we choose about death. And we should choose the way God believes about death. That as easily as he gave us these bodies and this life, he can give us a new one. You understand? This thing is perpetual. It goes on for all eternity, this thing we call life. What kind of an a-hole would this almighty creator God, this loving creator, this benevolent creator God be if he gave you this really good thing we call human existence? Our five senses, everything we've ever tasted that was pleasant, or smelled that was pleasant, or felt that was pleasant, or saw that was pleasant, or heard that was pleasant. It's all because God granted us these things. This is great. To not believe in death is not difficult, my friends. Okay? Beyond the idea that we're going to be reconstituted, so to speak, like Christ resurrected, whatever you think. But God owns all the atoms that your body is comprised of. So it doesn't matter if it's cremated or put in the ground or whatever, okay? He owns every single atom. And he's not going to give us back atoms of death like we have now, the gene of death. But the idea is to give you a body that cannot perish. It cannot be threatened. It cannot die. It cannot get diseases. And people would scoff at that. I understand, because you're trained to scoff at that. But look, we're talking about a God that set the universe in motion and owns everything contained therein. Everything. No ifs, ands, or buts. And he owns our fertility. So if God owns this chunk of real estate we call planet Earth, and we're these very special, unique creatures made in his image and likeness, he's not going to let us overpopulate. You get it? It's not hard. I mean, even a little kid, I could explain this stuff to a little kid. They'd say, okay, yeah, I mean, if God's got that power, then there's, no way that we could have kids anymore if there was that, even a slight threat of overpopulating. But we're far from that now. So this idea that, they got to take measures to make people poorer because, you understand, yeah, they don't have to be poor. Everybody could be rich, but just think of all the energy they'd all be using and would destroy the planet so much faster. So we've got to keep wealth an exclusive right, okay, for this segment or that. If you're in this niche or that niche, then, it's okay. We'll allow it, and we'll allow hereditary wealth, pass it on to your heirs and all that. But we've got to keep a huge swath of the population poor so they're not out there taking trips. They're not out there driving Hummers. They're not out there, wantonly cooling and heating their homes. We got to make sure that they're restricted. And by making people poor, they're restricted. We're being controlled by the purse strings. And it's evil. It's not God's reality. Basically, this entire freaking thing is an unreality that's been imposed on us from birth. And we're told we're totally unique from all the creatures. Not that we're godlike, but in the sense that unlike all the other creatures, you have a cost of living. For you, nothing is free. And you're to accept that as gospel, as just pure common sense. Of course, nothing's free and nothing's fair. So all you newborns, you stick that in your pipe and smoke it, and that's the way we're going to train you and teach you. And you're going to get it in other ways. Well, yeah, I figured it out. My teacher didn't tell me. My parents didn't tell me. My friends were ignorant. But I figured out, yeah, they're making us poor on purpose. Currency debasement is no accident. It's not an oversight. It's not due to incompetence. It's theft. All these people that are doing this to us are the same mentality of the slavers of old. They cannot resist the money. They love it. Forego their conscience in a freaking New York minute. Done. Gone. I want money. Yeah. Murder. Genocide. Whatever. Starting wars where innocent men, women, and children are maimed and killed. No problem. Those are the monsters that are creating the policies that we're all forced by law, mandate of law. You could lose your freedom. They could take all your money. They could take all your stuff if you don't follow their law. And then people that are pious and they say, well, Jesus was cool. Oh, you're religious. Oh, get away from me. Separation, church and state. You're cuckoo. You're a nut. You need a crutch. There's no God, dummy. God is the state. Oh, I get it. I know you're trained. We're all trained. That's common sense, man. You go with the flow, the status quo. Somehow it all makes sense. This wealth imbalance, it just keeps growing. Don't worry about where it's going to end. Yeah, don't see that raging river that's headed over an abyss and nobody knows who's going to survive. That's where I see this country now. That's where I see it. And I pray to God that everybody else would start seeing it. We're on the brink, the precipice. This cannot go on like this with this currency debasement. People cannot withstand it. You will see more desperate poverty. You will see a need for more welfare programs. Of course you are. It's a given. And one thing leads to another. It's all chain reaction, man. It's all cause and effect. It's all a ripple effect. Just like when one one commodity in your life that nobody can get away from because it's an essential human need. In specific, let's take housing, which is inflated. That's always been the first thing. Your housing costs start going up. The cost to buy a house, the cost to rent a house, shelter, an essential human need. What do you think everybody, when they say, hey, I've just been getting by before, what do you think's going to happen? They need more money. So where's the Federal Labor Department looking after the interests of federal minimum wage workers? They could have prevented inflation, and it's dead in its tracks. Dead in its tracks by coming out and just holding the nation accountable. Who is deflating the worth of our money? Is this market manipulation and collusion of different special interest groups that have an interest of raising the price of this or that? Let's get to the bottom of it. Or is there a genuine supply disruption? Temporarily, we're going to have to raise the price of this or that a little more, okay? Because we need to pay to rebuild a factory or something that blew up. But once it's paid for, down go the prices and even more. Why? Because in the industrial age, which has been in effect for well over 200 years now, automation, robotization, robotics, all this stuff has made it easier and easier and easier to produce in excess, in abundance, in a superfluity, all the things we want and need. And yes, housing the top of that. We have more of a glut of housing in America today than ever before in history. And look at the homelessness out there. So there's no lack of housing in America today. There's a glut. You say, oh, that's bull. What are you talking about? Why all the homeless? It's like diamonds. If you got groups of people, investors that own all the diamonds in the warehouse, and they regulate them out on their